Okay, hello, it's me, James, and I'm here with Peter. Hi, Peter.
Hello.
And we are here with another selection of must have cards from the forthcoming Dark Phoenix Saga set. This time we're focusing on globals and utility stuff. So, without further ado, let's crack on, Peter. The first card we have to talk about is Mutation, a card which is close to my heart and a reprint of cards we've had in the past, such as this one from Heroes in a Half Shell. The global, I think we'll talk about first, which reads: pay a mask, spin one of your character dice, it actually says die, but down a level, to spin another target character die up a level. Peter, why is this great?
Yes, we have a similar global, of course, currently on energy field,
Mm-hmm.
and it is very useful for a specific type of ability, which is Awaken,
Oh, yeah.
which inset can be seen on Kitty Pryde, for example. She has Awaken Prep a Die from your bag. So, first of all, it's very nice to have a way of triggering this inset for draft, for example, because in the previous set, there wasn't really a great way to trigger Awaken, even though there were Awaken cards.
Mm-hmm. We should say Awaken triggers when the die spins up one or more levels, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
So if you have Mutation and Kitty Pryde, you have a one-sided prep global, basically, if you
Nice.
spin Kitty Pryde up. Uh, but there are other useful cards with Awaken, such as Nebula from the
Mm-hmm.
Infinity Gauntlet set, which is a win con in itself.
She says, Awaken, deal 1 damage to target character die and 2 damage to target player. Nice.
Yeah, so it's very good for clearing the field and also for dealing a bunch of damage to your opponent on the side.
The global is
Yes.
not the only reason, right, that we
No.
might like to have Mutation on our team. The action itself says swap target character die in the field zone with target non-psychic character die in that player's used pile. Spin that character die to level 1. And it does say that player's, so that leads to all sorts of shenanigans. Peter.
Indeed. One way of using this is to mess with your opponent's when fielded abilities, because if you swap the die in, it doesn't trigger when fielded abilities. So
Mm-hmm.
if your opponent has purchased a Drax, the pacifist, you can, if it's in their use pile, you can swap that in for one of their other characters, and it'll be just a statless thing. Uh, if they already have their Drax out, you can also swap it out for something that's in their use pile. And since Drax prevents you from fielding a certain character, if you have that character in your use pile, you can swap it in instead of actually fielding it, and then circumvent the Drax lock.
And you can also use it, as we mentioned on a previous video, to move your own stuff into the field, stuff which doesn't depend on when fielded effects, but which has horrible fielding costs, like Jean Grey, for example. Okay, Mutation is a favourite of mine. Shall we move on?
Yes, let's.
Okay, next up we have Mr. Sinister, who I believe we've put here for the global. It's Mr. Sinister Rare, and the global on that one reads: pay 2 generic, field a sidekick from your used pile, prep a sidekick die from your used pile. Peter, why is this great?
Yeah, we have seen this global before on Atlantis, but there it had specific energy types that you had to pay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's both prep and
Cull, we could call it.
cull. Indeed, yeah. So you take two sidekicks out of rotation at the low cost of 2 energy. The upside here is that you don't have to pay 2 specific energies, but that can also be a downside because if you're playing Atlantis, you can build your team around it and have fist characters and shield characters on your team, so you
Mm-hmm.
can take better advantage of Atlantis than your opponent.
Right.
But if you're building a mask team, for example, you would not have that much use for Atlantis, and then you can use Mr. Sinister instead.
Indeed. And if you want to
Um,
be a little bit more generous to your opponent, you can also give them Clayface.
you
Um,
could, yeah. So the beauty of that is that if you have a die that you clayface in on double energy, you can use that right away for the Mr. Sinister global, and especially if you're running a mask team, that is useful. Because first you're using a mask to clayface something in, and then you're
mhm.
using 2 masks, presumably, to pay for the Mr. Sinister global, which leads to paying 3 masks that will trigger Turk Barrett for example.
Because you can spend them as, even though it says pay generic, you can say that you're spending them as masks, right?
Indeed, yeah. So they should still trigger Turk in that way. So that's 3 triggers for Turk.
Well, good for Turk. We discussed in another video how horribly nerfed Turk has been by some of the things in this.
Yeah, he's having a rough time. I don't know if he's still going to be super relevant, but still, it's nice that he has some help as well in the set. And so your fielding sidekicks.
And why do we want to do that? Why do we
trigger
want to field sidekicks?
Other nice cards, such as the upcoming Super Red Jubilee, which will deal 1 damage to your opponent and 1 damage to target character die when you field something.
And if 1 damage is not enough, we could always go back to super rare Thor from Infinity Gauntlet, who does 2 damage to either your opponent or a character die when you field a psychic.
Yes, and if you want to double up on the ramp from Mr. Sinister, you can use the Jubilee to actually KO the sidekick you just fielded, and then you prep 2.
Wow, nice. And we thought of another reason you might want to field some psychics, which was as a sort of energy bank.
Yeah.
If you want to save up energy for later, there are psychic spinners available to you. Black Dwarf is one, Intellect Devourer is another, which allow you to spin down your psychics to energy, which you can then use to buy something more expensive.
Indeed.
Okay, so let's move on from that to the next one, which is Dark Phoenix, again for the global, which reads, pay a bolt and KO 1 of your character dice. The next die you purchase this turn costs 2 less, to a minimum of 1. This is a reprint of an old favourite, which is Blue Eyes White Dragon Global. Peter, why is it good?
Well, one, it is good because you can KO stuff to purchase other stuff for cheap, which is also a reason you might want to field sidekicks with the previously mentioned global, because you can KO those for discounts, and it allows you to KO stuff that you might want to get out of the field, to refield, or to trigger other abilities. Currently, we only had Nihilor to KO stuff at will. Yep. One of the downsides to this one is that you can only do it once per turn, whereas with Dark Phoenix you can do it as many times as you can pay a bolt.
And you get the discount, which
doesn't give and you get the discount as a bonus. So what sort of thing would you want to KO with this? Something that has a wind-fielded effect, but has a big butt, for example. So it's not going to die from combat damage, probably, such as Corsair.
When fielded, place the next die you purchase this turn into your bag.
Yeah, and on the turn that you field him, you can KO him, and then the next thing you buy will be put in your bag. So.
Oh, nice. Okay. So big butts is one reason, and another reason might be just that they have a ability that triggers when something is KO'd, right?
Yeah.
So Magneto Super Rare says, while Magneto is active, when 1 of your Brotherhood character dice is KO'd, KO target opposing character die. That's nice. So you get a discount, and you get to KO 1 of their dice.
That's a lot of value.
And another reason, or rather another character that might benefit from being KO'd is
yes,
Super Rare Master Mold. Where Master Mold, when fielded, when Master Mold attacks, or when Master Mold is KO'd, place a Sentinel token with 5 attack and 5 defense into the field zone. So obviously KOing directly gets you a token, but it also allows you to field it again next turn. Nice. Yep.
And the discount is also nice to get to a 6 cost.
Yes, to get to it in the first place. And indeed also useful for Dark Phoenix herself, who has a pretty decent ability. So yes, we like KOing stuff and we like discounts. Okay, so should we move on to the next one, which is... Oh, it's Magneto himself. So the one that I just read to you, but the global I think we're interested in, which is pay a mask once per turn during your turn. If you have no dice in your prep area, you may draw a die and place it in your prep area. So this is a reprint of the Villainous Pact global. Peter, tell us about this.
Yeah. So one advantage of this is that it can free up a basic action slot. So if you really want to run 2 other basic actions, but you still want this global, you have the Magneto option now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a mass global, which is always nice for things like Turk Barrett, for example.
Indeed, yes.
And it's a limited prep global. So you're not just giving your opponent something they can always use. For example, if they're relying on Walk with Elias
Which
for ramp.
places stuff in the prep area.
Yeah, and once something is in the prep area, Magneto Global will no longer work. And so on turn 2, you can't first Walk with Elias and then use the Magneto Global. So you will have to choose between them. Do you go for the bag management or do you go for the extra ramp?
Tough choice.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to make those horrible choices, we do have another option for you, so we'll get rid of that. And move on to Wolverine, whose global says, pay a fist once per turn on your turn, prep a die from your bag. And this is basically the Atlas Global, which was exactly the same. Oh, it's also on the rare, probably I should say. We'll come to that in a minute. But
Yes.
tell us why that is good.
So this allows you to do other shenanigans first, and then still prep. If your opponent also brings it, you can do it twice in a turn. So this adds more options for ramp in contrary to the Magneto Global.
Yeah. So there's a lot more flexibility than the Magneto Global.
And if you're focused more on fists in your team, that might also be a reason for preferring this one. And we should probably also mention the ability on the rare Wolverine here.
Wolverine's burst text reads, when you spin up another character die, spin Wolverine up also.
Well, this pairs very well with the Mutation Global, because you can, if Wolverine is on level 2 or 3, you can spin him down as part of the cost for mutation, then spin another die up. And then when you spin that other die up, Wolverine gets spun up as well.
So
and then you can use him. Yeah. So he's unlimited mutation fuel in that sense.
As long as you've got enough masks, you can spin as many things up as you want. And every time you spin something up, he will spin up, and that will trigger his Awaken ability, which we didn't read. It says target sidekick character die gains deadly as a bit of a bonus.
Yeah.
And you could perhaps use Mutate to get him in, although you don't really want him on level 1, but then you'd have to spend a mask to get him up to level 2, and you're good to go. And then you don't have to pay his horrible fielding. Nice.
That too.
Like it. Okay, I think we are done with Wolverine, so let's move on to the next one, which is Radicalization. Interesting global. It says pay a shield, target character die gains the X-Men or Brotherhood affiliation until end of turn, evocative of, for example, Trusted Friend, which also gave you a choice of affiliations to gift. How can we use this, Peter?
Well, there are many cards that interact with both the X-Men affiliation and the Brotherhood affiliation. Some even both, such as Master Mold, which when fielded deals 2 damage to all X-Men characters and all Brotherhood characters dice. So yeah, this could be pretty decent field clear if you have enough field shields. Sorry. To turn stuff into X-Men or Brotherhood characters.
And indeed enough energy to field Master Mold himself.
That too.
Itself, I should probably say. How about Kitty Pryde, which says this character die cannot be blocked if it attacks with another X-Men character die. So you could just make, as you mentioned, you could make something into a sidekick into an X-Men, and boom, she's unblockable. And what's the next one? Ooh, tell us about Sabretooth, Peter.
So yeah, Sabretooth says when he attacks, your Brotherhood character dice get +2 attack. So you can give any die on your team, even if it's not a Brotherhood die, +2 attack if you pay for the Radicalization Global. So that can be pretty nice. We're not sure on
his Team Watch ability.
Is whether the Team Watch will work, because we're not sure if you can target a die in your reserve pool with the Radicalization Global. If you can do that, that makes it even better.
Because Team Watch triggers when you field an affiliated character. So if you had him in the field, and if it did work like this, if you can use the global to target dice which are already character dice in your reserve pool once they're rolled, you could make a psychic into a Brotherhood character, Brotherhood affiliation, feel that, and if it worked, then you would trigger his Team Watch, which says target character die can't block this turn, which would be strong.
Okay, would be pretty strong.
And there's one more you wanted to mention, which was Mystique from X-Men Forever.
Yeah, it's an old favorite of mine. She can get pretty big, and you can just turn an extra sidekick into a Brotherhood character and give her another +2 buff.
Or indeed your opponent's Black Widow or whatever, right?
Yeah. So you can just pew 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 pew, turn everything into Brotherhood characters, give Mystique Overcrush, and go to town.
Boom. As long as you've got the shields in this case.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to just a couple more now. The next one's quite a quick one, I think. It is Arch Nemesis. It's a beautiful card, so worth including that for that reason alone. But the global says, pay a shield, target character die has defense equal to its attack. This is a reprint. There was one in Thor, but it was ugly, so I included the one from Amazing Spider-Man. Well, okay, what can we do with this, Peter, maybe?
Yeah, well, there's two things you can do with it. You can give something with a high attack, a high defense, or you can give something with a low attack, a low defense. So there are certain cards which only have 0 attack on some faces.
Such as
Moira on her level 1. If you give her defense equal to her attack, she will have 0 defense, and then she will be KO'd. So that's one way of doing it. I think there are other, like Manchun also has it.
This used to be a big thing.
It used to be a big thing back in the day, exactly, because things had big butts. And I also used this Arch Nemesis Global on my Babs back in the day to give her more defense. But that's a different story for another time.
But these days, I feel like attack and defenses are a bit more symmetrical than they used to be, so it's perhaps of a little bit limited utility. But, I can see this if you're a Godcatcher player and you don't want Moira abound, I can see that.
Who knows what the future brings as well.
Indeed. Okay. I think we've just got one more card to look at, which is Mutant Research Program. It's a basic action card. It says, if you have at least 2 active founder character dice, draw and roll 3 dice. Otherwise, draw and roll a die. Now, before we get on to Founder, that is evocative of Investigation, last seen in the Infinity Gauntlet set, which says draw and roll 2 dice. Place them in your reserve pool. Cost 3, but doesn't have any limitations. Peter, what do you reckon?
Right. So, yeah, it first off, it's cheaper, but it's not very attractive if it only rolls the 1 die, of course.
Yeah.
But the upside to this is that Founder is not something everyone will be playing. So if you do play Founder and your opponent does not, then they will not be very likely buying this particular action.
And your favorite Founder card would be?
That would be the Rare Beasts. It has Founder, and it also says when he attacks, prep a die from your bag. The first beast you buy costs 1 more, so that's going to be a 3 cost, but after that, he's a 2 cost. And so if you have 2 active beasts, because the Mutant Research Program doesn't specify that it need to be different Founder character dice, you can use Mutant Research Program to roll 3 dice, and you can attack with beasts to prep some dice. So that's it's a lot of ramp.
Oh, that's pretty good for early game. They both cost 2. It's always nice to have a 2-cost die. So that's fantastic. Peter, thank you very much indeed for your time. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We hope you found that useful. If we've missed anything, if missed any of your favourites, or if we've made any mistakes, please do let us know in the comments. And also do check out the other videos about Dark Phoenix that I made with Spug and Ben. Thank you very much. Take care and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye-bye.